As you sit or stand there, no doubt breathing in the air of life, wondering to what extent you are a miracle, or otherwise, may I reveal to you some good news as I welcome you to day 18 of the Understandable programme. So we're coming towards the latter part of the belief segment. I wanted to spread some wondrous information that you are a miracle. Well, what is a miracle? I'm going to read to you the Oxford English Dictionary definition of a miracle and then reveal why I'm putting this in the belief bit. So a miracle is a marvellous event not ascribable to human power or the operation of any natural force and therefore attributed to supernatural, especially divine agency. An act, for example, of healing, demonstrating control over nature and serving as evidence that the agent is either divine or divinely favoured. So, in terms of belief and self-belief, when we acknowledge the inherent miracle of our physical form, I would purport that self-belief becomes much more of not just a possibility, but a probability, then an inevitability. This week, we've looked at acknowledging and releasing fears, and then looked at the importance of self-love. Many proponents of personal growth would agree that fear and love are two opposing forces. So bringing love in where possible dissolves fear. I would suggest that whatever it is, whatever this invisible force is that's keeping my heart beating, loves me if it were to have a sentient consciousness. So my fundamental existence is that of love or loving energy. So when we say we are love, rather than that be hippy-dippy, wishy-washy, hocus-pocus, bunkum, it can be acknowledged and embodied as a scientific fact. So a bit of information about the heartbeat, and you'll see where this is going in time. In the middle of the heart is a wonderful little node called the sinoatrial node, one of my favourite nodes of all time for reference purposes. This sinoatrial node is what is responsible for generating the electrical signal that becomes the pulse. Now, scientists can observe what happens, but still can't quite say how that first heartbeat occurs. I consulted one of my great friends about this, who is one of the top cardiologists in the UK, and I said to him, Chris, because that was his name and still is, I said, this sinoatrial node's a cracky node, but how does it generate that first heartbeat? He said, well, it's just intrinsic. See, we know that the cells of the fetus reach a kind of threshold around 6 weeks where there's like friction involved, and it's a bit like rubbing two sticks to make a fire and a flame emerges. At this point, around 6 weeks, the electrical signal comes in and then the first pulse. I said, okay, that's what happens, but how? He said, yeah, it's just intrinsic, it's innate. I said, so it's a miracle then? He said, absolutely. So it is a dictionary fact that every heartbeat is a miracle. So to continue the definition-based focus here, so a miracle is that attributed to supernatural. I thought, I wonder what supernatural means. Supernatural, belonging to a realm or system that transcends nature as that of divine, magical, or ghostly beings, attributed or thought to reveal some force beyond scientific understanding. So scientists still can't say how is the key word, how that 6-week-old fetus's sinoatrial node somehow goes and extracts this electricity from the ether, the unknown, intangible life force that unites us all, that we're all plugged into via our heartbeat, and becomes a pulse. So, miracle is attributed to supernatural. Supernatural is thought to reveal some sort of force beyond scientific understanding, so that's the heartbeat. Beyond scientific understanding, all the laws of nature. So I looked at nature, what's natural, that which is expected, senses relating to physical or bodily power, strength or substance. So supernatural is something that is beyond what is natural. That which is natural is senses relating to physical or bodily power. So in many ways, we're so supernatural, we can't even believe it or understand it. It's inconceivable how great you are. And in that knowledge and the truth of that fact, may you believe that you can achieve the things that you set out to do. I become really, really fascinated with this sort of stuff. I continued my investigation, my Sherlock Holmes style investigation of what words mean, and looked at the word divine, given by or proceeding from God. I thought, well, that's quite a loaded term, isn't it? The G word. What is God? A superhuman being or spirit worshipped as having power over nature or human fortunes. A deity. Well, you could say, and this is a hypothetical discourse that is occurring here, you could say that the electricity that's keeping our hearts beating has power over human fortunes. If your heart stops, it's very difficult to carry on living. A superhuman being or spirit. Oh, what does spirit mean? Spirit, the animating or vital principle in humans that gives life to the physical organism in contrast to its material elements. So the spirit, aka, comes from the Latin word spiritus, which means the breath of life. So hang about. So when we breathe and our heart beats, we are God-like spirits in a human form. This is just definitions. It's not New Age philosophy. This is as good as fact as anything you're ever going to hear or read or know. So another little definition, spirit, the animating principle that gives life to the physical organism. What does life mean? What's the Oxford English Dictionary definition of life? Animate existence regarded in terms of its continuance or prolongation. So, i.e., when we get born and then have kids and then they have kids and then they have kids, this continuation of life force that unites us all is in no way separate to that which you could believe to be God, spirit. I thought, the word animate, pretty interesting usage of it there. I always thought like Donald Duck and that. But animate, the literal definition, endowed with life, living, alive and having the power of movement. So when we move and breathe and our heart beats, we are life. Do we have a life or are we life? It's a great question to ask and one that may never be answered. That's life, isn't it? Listen to that. Life force all around. And to conclude, another definition for the word animate, to give spirit, well, inspiration or impulse, to fill with boldness, courage, spirit, to encourage. So, if you were to encourage yourself, may that be a side effect of self-belief? Quite possibly. So, know that you're a miracle. We can thank the supernatural, be natural in terms of, embody strength, and consider yourself to have great divinity, spirit, and godlike animation, and go forth to achieve the goals that you have for yourself. There can be no doubt when you know that this is true. Great news.